Hi folks, this is Karen of KT Finances. Happy to see you here today. I want to talk to you folks about something that is so super important and maybe not as fun, maybe not quite as upbeat as I usually try and have it, maybe a little scary, but guys, it's real. So let me dive right in. I'm not sure I have the saying precisely right, but there's something about the only thing that's certain is like life, death, and taxes. And I think instead of life, it might even be change, because change is definitely all around us and happening all the time. And also happens with finances, also happens with financial products. And as most of you know, I'm Karen Trepte, and I market for over 100 of the top national financial firms in the United States. That's very wonderful because it gives me the access to a lot of different products that I can offer you as your personal advocate, your personal shopper. But let's talk about the stuff that's not as fun first. So let's talk about some of the things in life that can happen. And these actually have happened to some of my friends, like recently. So divorce is nothing that we anticipate. And especially being a woman and a female entrepreneur, as much as I adore my husband, and I do, he's my second husband. So we have been married now for over, almost 38 years, which is pretty spectacular. But my first marriage didn't end so well. It ended in divorce. So I know all too well what the importance is of being set up with your own funds, with your own resources as a woman, whether you are married or not. And if you're part of a strong couple, it's really important to have your own finances together. And I would say that it's important at least to have some smaller accounts where your funds are separate. So that gives you the leeway, right, to be able to have your own spending money. So I've just seen this happen too many times where with a couple of my friends, actually, I mean, two names, of course, I'm not giving names, but two names just came to my head. One was from a little further back in time, and one is recent, where they just pretty much closed their eyes to the finance, trusted their husbands. Maybe the property was in their husband's name. Maybe a lot of the assets were in their husband's name. Actually, now I'm thinking of another person too. So you just need to open your eyes, and you need to open your eyes now. And I'm saying this from a loving place. I know the title of this is Why I'm Willing to Scare You. Why am I willing to scare you even though it's not Halloween? It's because I care about you. And it's really important to take care of your finances. And it's really important to take care of them now, before these things happen. And if they never happen, which kind of fits my personality, right? I'd like to be, one of my favorite children's stories is walking in between the raindrops. And I'll share with you, that's the way I love to live my life. I don't like to think about these things either. But out of caring and out of love, I've got to talk to you about them. So divorce is one thing that can happen. Another thing that can happen is you can get in a car accident. You can be the best driver in the world. In fact, this just happened to another of my friends. She and her daughter, again, no names, of course, just got into a wreck, she told me, and now her back hurts, and now she's got to go to the chiropractor, and now she's got to do who knows what. And I'm sure that she had car insurance. And isn't that fabulous? Yes. And why do people get car insurance? People don't get car insurance because they're anticipating a wreck. Why do people get house insurance? They don't get house insurance because they think the house is going to burn down. We do know, right? We're aware that people's houses burn down, sure. But have you ever heard anybody complain about, oh, I've been paying for house insurance for the last, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, and my house has never burned down. And so now, why did I spend all that money? No, you never hear anybody saying that because people know, and the banks who typically own the mortgages for all but the very, very few, know that some houses burn down. And that's why you've got to have insurance. So, you know that I market for all these big name firms. You know there's over 100 of them. And there's tons of different products that I represent, which is glorious for me because I'm able to fulfill a lot of my clients' needs. Now, do I market for car insurance or house insurance? No. But one of the many products that is offered through these companies, they have IRAs, they have annuities, they have investments, they have products that will make your child $1 million baby. They have life insurance, and they have long-term care. So let's talk about those two things, because concurrent with your investments and long-term savings, which is like my favorite, right? Long-term savings, retirement, setting yourself up for a house, an extra house, vacations, whatever it is that your heart desires. In addition to that, it's really important to have life insurance, and I can help you with that. So we don't like to talk about it, but people get sick and people die. And sometimes not at 80 or 90, right? Sometimes people might even pass away at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. And as sad as it is, think about it this way, especially if you're a mom and married, okay? So, do you have children? What would happen, we were just talking about car accidents, if God forbid, you and your husband were driving together somewhere and something happened and someone else was driving very poorly, something that you have no control over, zero. What happens if you don't have any life insurance? If your children are not protected? Not only will they be devastated because they've lost their parents, I agree, that's going to be the biggest grief, but do you have savings for them? Are they going to be destitute if you guys don't put away money or have insurance or have life insurance? Now, there's all different kinds of life insurance, and I'm not going to keep you on here forever, so I can't go through all of them, but it is really important to be protected. It's important that your children are protected. I would say it's important that your spouse is protected. Even if you say, okay, I'm a mom, I don't really bring in that much money, I'm just have my own little business here. Well, who's going to take care of those children if something happens to you? Even if your husband makes good money, what's going to happen? He's going to have to hire somebody. I know in this society, sometimes women are not looked at like having that much material value. because maybe the paychecks aren't directly coming in from the women or the moms. But think of all the things you do. You know how much you do. And if you actually bid that out into society to cover all those costs of whatever you do, be it cleaning, be it fixing, meals, be it watching the children, all of those things, and you added them up, you would find that it costs a lot of money. So being protected and being protected now is like ultra important. And sometimes you don't just pass away, right? What if, God forbid, you got in this car wreck and you're hurt and you get better in 6 months? I hope so, right? Sending you love. But for 6 months, how many people actually have funds put aside that they can make it without that income for 6 months? That's why these companies offer you long-term care. Now, 1 out of every 4 people before my age, I don't feel old, before my age, before they're 60, have to go into have to go into assisted living. And that's for like a long time. But in between, you can imagine that a lot of people also go through periods of illness in their life, and they may not be able to produce income for those months. Let me give you another scenario that's not so much fun. That's called long-term care. Now, some of you, if you follow me closely, know that I substitute teach for extra cash. And I happened to substitute teach for this one teacher. I signed up for like 1 day. And I ended up being there over a couple of weeks. Why? Again, no names. Because her mom got ill. And this is a very young teacher. And her mother was in her 50s. And this mom had a 2-year-old child. So you can imagine the chaos, the devastation, everything. Now, as far as I know, the mom's still alive. But if you buy long-term care, which I so recommend, when you're in your 20s, 30s, or even 40s, maybe 50s, well, I'll take the 50s out of what I'm going to say next, which is you can get it for pennies on the dollar. You can if you're 20, 30, or 40. By the time you're 50, you're going to be having to pay a lot more than pennies for that long-term care. But the thing is, and I know the value because my mom had Alzheimer's. My dad had dementia at the end. I know what it's like. I know that my mom was in a facility where the nurse to patient ratio was like 1 to 100. What kind of care is that? So as her Alzheimer's progressed, we had to move her out of there. And eventually we ended up bringing her into our own home, which meant I couldn't work on my business, right? Or if I did, I did work on my business. That's not completely true, but certainly my time was extremely limited to work on my business, not to mention the emotional aspect of all of that, because it's one of the hardest things that I've ever done in my life. Now, if she had had long-term care insurance, we wouldn't have had to worry about it so much. And luckily, my mom was a really good saver. So we had enough for a while. But it's $6,000 a month to start. And another friend of mine tells me about his mom, where it's $8,000 a month. Think about that, guys. It takes a lot of money to fund that kind of care. And if you don't have the funds, what are you going to do? I'm sorry to tell you, but Medicare, as fabulous as it is, if you put your folks into that kind of facility, it's almost like it's almost like a death blow. Okay, I said I'd say scary things today. I don't like talking like this, but it's true. They're horrible facilities. They will get almost zero care. So you're either rich and put them in a nice facility, you give up everything and take care of them yourself for a while, but I will tell you that there comes a point when you can't even really care for your own parents. Because when it comes to be 24/7, round the clock, and just, plumbing systems get plugged up, it gets pretty messy, pretty nasty, because the people don't know anymore what they're doing. They have to be watched 100%, like a little baby, only they're big and they're more rebellious. So I want you to think seriously about this. I want you to think about getting your long-term care. Make sure you have adequate life insurance. Now, a lot of people tell me, I have life insurance through my company. Okay, that's a good start. But let me tell you, if something happens to that job, you no longer have life insurance. Take a look at the fine print. Look at how it's written. It's usually while you're an employee. So what happens? Your parents get older. It happens to the best of us. You have to go take care of them. Maybe you didn't even lose your job. Maybe you had to give up your job in order to take care of your parents. You no longer are covered. You no longer have life insurance for yourself. So these are really critical things. And wouldn't you agree that insuring us on the most important asset we have, which is our lives, is so much more important than insurance on a refrigerator, which people get, insurance on their cell phones, which I almost guarantee you a lot of people have. So those are some of the things that we can talk about. And those are some of the things that we can protect you. What if your children got sick? Maybe it's not elderly parents. Then what are you going to do? You might have to ditch that job. And if you're self-employed, you still might have to ditch a lot of hours. So children getting sick, job loss, all those things. We don't like to think about these things, but we need to plan. So here's another thing that's about today's culture. And let's talk about delayed gratification, because I talk a lot about long-term savings. I talk a lot about investments. So we have so many products that I can access for you, since I market for over 100 companies. But delayed gratification is not fun. It's just simply not fun. So a lot of people keep pushing off these things, pushing off life insurance, pushing off saving for the future, pushing off not wanting to, getting ready to retire someday, especially if in their 20s. They're like, oh, I'll think about that later. So I want to clue you in on that. Think about it now. It's so much cheaper. You will save a ton of money. And yes, it's not as sexy. It's not as fun, right? Is okay, I'm going to Europe with these thousands of dollars. I understand that. And delayed gratification has been even harder for my generation and your generations than it was for generations in the past. The savings rate in this country is just pathetic and low. And that's not because we're all bad people, because me included, right? Why am I so passionate about this? Why am I on a mission to help younger generations? Well, because I can see all the mistakes that I've made. I can see that if I just put away $100, $200 a month, not just the rainy day fund, but for retiring, for long-term savings, then I wouldn't have to be so worried about it, right? I wouldn't have to be concerned. So if you want your children to be $1 million babies, if you want to sleep really peacefully at night, if you want to make sure that you're protected for the what ifs, just like you so easily insure your cell phones and your refrigerators, then contact me. Let's book a free call. I don't charge for my services at all. The only time I charge, and it's never to you, the companies give me a commission if you decide that you like the products I'm presenting you, which most people, once they talk to me and they see how awesome they are, just love them. So you don't know what's around the corner. Let's get you set up for some peaceful night's sleep. And as always, I'm sending you tons of light and love, and I look forward to chatting soon. Okay, guys. Ciao for now. Bye.